I'm Eliot Horowitz, CEO and founder of Viam. Before Viam, I was the CTO and co-founder of MongoDB. After building a database for 13 years, I spent a bunch of time in the physical world and kept finding things that I wish were automated. So like a lot of other engineers, what did I do? I rolled up my sleeves and started trying to tinker and build things that would enhance the world around me. And what I came to find is that building software that works with hardware was a lot harder than I thought it needed to be. And so me and a couple other people started to think about how we can make this better, how we can make it easier for software engineers and hardware engineers to come together to build really cool devices that worked in the real world. What we came to was what Viam is today. Viam is a platform for smart machines. A smart machine is anything that has some sensing, some compute, some actuation maybe, and lives in the physical world around you. We don't care if you've got one sensor, one simple temperature sensor, or 1,000 sensors. We don't care if you're running in a small ESP32 or a really big Linux machine. We don't care if you've got one little relay or a ton of motors and a very complex actuation system. Anything that has these components and exists in the real world should be able to use Viam to make it much easier to build a prototype and get something into production and then scale it. When we thought about Viam, we came up with a bunch of things that we really cared about. First, that it would work really well for one engineer by themselves or a team of 1,000 engineers. That it would work really well for 10 machines or managing a fleet of 10 million machines. We wanted Viam to be full stack, to have really good APIs for working with motors and servos, all the way up through doing machine learning and computer vision, right? Everything you needed to get your job done. We want it to be completely modular and pluggable. There's a lot of great hardware out there. We can't possibly write drivers for everything. It needs to be easy to add support for any piece of hardware or any algorithm that you need or anything that's missing from the platform. It also has to be pluggable. If you've got existing solutions or an existing thing mostly built, you shouldn't have to rewrite it just to use other components. Everything in Viam should be able to be used by itself or all together as a whole. We want it to be cloud native, but aware that a lot of the devices that we're running on often don't have internet connectivity. Maybe they won't have it for 5 minutes, maybe 5 hours, maybe 5 weeks. It shouldn't matter, but the cloud should be a part of it. And we want it to be really easy to get started. No big barriers to entry, nothing complicated. Software engineers, hardware engineers working together to make devices come to life. So what is Viam? We break it down into 7 core areas. First area is Viam Core. Viam Core is how we handle communication, security, and privacy. We do communication through gRPC and WebRTC to make it very fast and efficient. And security and privacy are paramount. If you're going to start putting more and more devices in your house, in your office, or in public, you have to know that they're safe, they're secure, and only the people who should have access to the data on them has that data. Next is Build. Viam Build has opinionated APIs for how do you interact with the hardware. Anything from motors to gantries to arms, everything is there. Everything is pluggable, everything's easy to extend. Next is Fleet Management. Fleet Management is how you manage a fleet of either one machine or millions of machines. How do you configure the machine? How do you deploy different versions of code on it? Get logs, do remote diagnostics, see the value of any sensor, control any actuator, build a teleop experience, manage the versions of code across a large fleet and do an upgrade at the right times for each machine. That's all part of fleet management. Viam Registry is how you bring the modules to life. As people build more and more modules, they need a way to deploy them and share them. With Viam Registry, you can share an open source module, you can share a closed source module that maybe you want to charge for, and you can do that through us. Or maybe you want something completely private that is a module just for your system so that you can use all the code deployment features that come with this, but no, you're not going to share it at all. All of these features are enabled through Viam Registry. Next is data management. All of these devices have all these sensors, and you might want to take this data, bring it from the machines, and bring it to the cloud. With data management, you can capture data on device, store it locally, sync it to the cloud when possible, and then once it's in the cloud, do whatever you want with it, have raw APIs to access it, or do queries on it, whether Mongo queries or SQL queries. There's also very interesting features built in, like being able to say when data syncs. So maybe if you're on LTE, you don't want to sync data. When you're on Wi-Fi, you should. Or filtering the data on the device so you only sync interesting information and don't flood your cloud with tons and tons of pictures that are completely boring. Next, machine learning. Once you have data in the system, you can label it, you can train it, you can build models, you can deploy these models to machines. You can build models however you want. You can bring models in from the outside and deploy them to machines. We have APIs for computer vision and object detection and all these things built in that you can use our built-in ones off the models we support, or it's completely pluggable and use whatever you want. You can deploy models and run them on CPUs or GPUs, whatever hardware you have. And all of this is abstracted away. And if we don't have support for a certain GPU or a certain piece of hardware, it's easy for us or anyone to add it through the registry. And last, but certainly not least, is Viam mobility. Mobility is everything that has to do with machines moving around in the real world. Motion planning for arms, SLAM for indoor navigation, GPS navigation outdoors, obstacle avoidance. All of these things are part of Viam mobility, so things can actually move around in the physical world. Everything in Viam is meant to be easy to get started with, and also secure and safe. And so for those reasons, every part of Viam that is deployed onto your devices is open source. Your code, do whatever you want. All of our code that's shipped to you, all open source. We think this is incredibly important to ensure privacy, to ensure security, and to build a really great developer ecosystem. Everything in the cloud, very simple consumption-based pricing. No upfront fees, no per device fees. If you store data with us, there's a per gigabyte fee. If we're building a model for you, there's a compute charge for actually building that model. All very transparent, very easy to understand, and you only pay for things that you use. To bring all of this to life, I'm going to show you a demo of a project that I've been working on, which is actually putting Viam onto a boat. So boats run off a NEMA 2000 network, which is a part of the CAN family. And so we're able to take a small device that you can buy, that anyone can buy, and install Viam on it. And there's actually a module called Viam Boat that anyone can go see. And once you do that, you can actually capture all the data that's on the boat very easily and display it in Viam. So let's take a look at how that all looks. So here is my boat. So this is where you go configure the components in your boat or your other devices if not everyone's using this for boats. So for example, here is where I configure the depth sensor. And then I can go over here and go to the control tab. And on the control tab, I can see what's going on. I can see where the boat is. I can look at any of the cameras. I've got a map. And then I can go look at any individual gauge that I want. I can go look at the fuel tank. I can go and look at all of the sensor data on the entire NEMA network, which is quite extensive, which if you're like me, you want to geek out on, or you can ignore. I can go see versions of the modules that I've got deployed and change how that works. All of this built in, see logs, see the history of changes I've made, all very easy. Then I've also configured data capture on here, so I can go again look at the boat movement sensor, which is where the boat is and how fast it's moving, and I'm capturing data at 0.1 hertz. So now I can come over to the data tab, and then I can click on sensors. And on this tab, I can then see all of the actual sensor data. So where the boat's been, how fast it's going, etc. And you can see sort of all of the historical data right here. And then you have full query access to it, again through either Mongo queries or SQL queries. Viam is designed to let software engineers or hardware engineers come together to bring devices to life. Please give it a shot. Please give us feedback, and I can't wait to see what you build.